They said the warp was eternal chaos, boundless, howling, and unknowable. But I saw it change. I heard it breathe. One moment it was the same endless sea of madness. The next it glowed, not with the sickly fluorescence of demon fire, nor the pallid shimmer of a dying star, but gold. Pure, impossible, holy gold. Every choir of the Astra Telepathica fell silent at once. Every navigator screamed in unison, and through the infinite static, something spoke. Not the Emperor, not the ruinous powers, but something ancient, gentle, and utterly alien. It whispered of wishes. It promised hope. And in that moment, the galaxy learned what true fear was, because in the grim darkness of the far future, nothing burns brighter than a light that does not belong. I was there when the first light tore through the void. Aboard the Praetor Nihilum, our sensors had been silent for weeks, the warp storms rolling and receding like cosmic lungs around Cadia's corpse. We thought it was another flare of chaos energy, some demon-born eruption from the eye. But when the lumen runes flared gold instead of crimson, when the ship's vox filled with harmonic frequency instead of screams, even the hardened Magos biologist beside me fell to his knees. The light wasn't killing us. It was singing to us. I remember the words of the astropath Prime before he burned alive. His eyes glowed with twin suns as he said, "The wish has been cast." His skull burst moments later, showering his attendants in molten bone. I thought I'd seen every horror the Imperium could conjure, but this was something else. The psychic waveform was clean, structured, patterned like mathematics rather than madness. But within its order, I felt an unearthly intent. It wasn't malice. It wasn't mercy. It was creation itself, pressing its hand through the warp. The Inquisition came quickly. Interrogator Seraphin of the Ordo Malleus led the inquiry, clad in obsidian carapace armor, bearing a rosarius that flickered like a dying star. She demanded our ship's cogitator logs, claiming the Emperor's tarot had shown her golden spheres adrift in the storm. The Mechanicus called it nonsense. Yet when the hololiths displayed those orbs, 7 perfect spheres, each inscribed with star-like sigils burning brighter than the Astronomicon, it was no longer heresy. It was evidence. The Adeptus Mechanicus declared them imperial nodes. The Ecclesiarchy called them saintly reliquaries. But I, Emissary Torvian, knew better. They were alive. Over the next solar week, the orbs scattered. One fell upon Mars, embedding itself in the new sphere, pulsing like a heartbeat in binary. Another vanished near Ultramar. One appeared over a demon world and vanished again. And then reports began filtering in of psychers manifesting impossible energy, Natu, drawn from the warp. They called it Ki. I witnessed one, a young Adepta, Psychana initiate aboard the Nihilum, levitating, as her body flared with pure golden aura. No demonic possession, no screaming, just radiant willpower. She smiled at me as she burned alive, her body transfigured into light. The Ordo Xenos declared an emergency containment order, believing these were alien artifacts. But something darker moved behind the veil. Across the galaxy, the Chaos Gods felt it too. In the Black Library, the Harlequins wept, claiming the pattern of fate had changed. In the Eye of Terror, Tzeentch screamed with laughter, for even he could not predict what had entered the Immaterium. And on some distant, forgotten shore of reality itself, another universe trembled. The first breach came through a rift over Armageddon. The Imperial Navy reported a golden meteor. Yet when it struck the ashen plains, it left no crater, only a man, kneeling amid the dust. His body unscarred, his armor unlike anything our augurs could classify. Orange dye fabric fluttering against the black winds, torn but unburnt. I remember watching the vid feed in the Strategium, how the man looked around, confused, scanning the sky as if searching for someone. When the Cadians approached, he spoke a word our Lex mechanics translated as Goku. At first, we believed him to be an alpha-level psyker. His power readings broke every scale. Bolter fire melted in the air around him, laser guns bent into spirals. And yet he looked terrified, not of us, but of the warp itself. When the first demonic incursion flared nearby, a blood host of Khorne tearing through the veil, he acted. No bolter, no psychic scream, no invocation of faith. Just motion, blinding, perfect motion. In a single instant, he vanished and reappeared in the heart of the demon tide. And then the air sang, there is no other way to describe it. The warp recoiled from him. Every demon, Beasts that had consumed entire regiments was torn apart, their essence dispersed like ash. I watched from orbit as the ground beneath him glowed gold, carving a sigil across miles of wasteland. Even the Chaos Rift closed, sealed by force of will. The Emperor's tarot flared across the Imperium. Tech priests proclaimed an energetic ascension event. The ecclesiarchy proclaimed a miracle. But the Inquisition whispered a single word: threat. The Golden Warrior was captured, contained within the deepest vaults of Luna. There, under psionic restraint and null fields, he remained silent. But his aura, faint as a dream, shone through the layers of adamantium. I was summoned to question him. I remember the smell of ozone as I entered his cell. His eyes opened, kind, curious, and impossibly human. "This isn't my world," he said. "The energy here, it screams." I told him of the warp, of chaos, of the Emperor's throne. He listened, pained as though I'd described a nightmare. Then quietly he asked, "If this place has gods, why do they want you to suffer?" I could not answer. Days later, the golden throne itself flickered. The Astronomicon dimmed for 23 seconds. Terra wept. And then came the whispers from the surviving psychers who claimed to have seen something. Not the Emperor, not a demon, but a vast golden dragon coiling above the stars, its voice resonating across all minds. "Gather the seven and speak your heart's desire." Entire sectors fell into madness. Heretic cults of the wishing serpent arose. The Imperium fractured under obsession. And Goku, the one who'd fallen from another reality, grew restless, his power contained but his heart unbroken. Inquisitor Seraphine came to me one night, her face pale beneath the glow of a shrine lumen. "Do you understand what this means, Torvian?" she whispered. "If those orbs grant true wishes, chaos itself could be unmade or remade." She paused, trembling. "And if that being, if he is only one of them," she didn't finish her sentence. She didn't have to. Because somewhere in the warp another light flared, bluer, colder, sharper. A second warrior had arrived, and unlike the first, this one wasn't confused. He was hunting. The warp howled as two realities collided. The demon Primarchs stirred in their nightmares. And in that endless dark, I felt something awaken, a truth so vast, it silenced the choir of the damned. The Dragon Balls weren't just artifacts, they were anchors, and each one brought this reality closer to collapse. I realized then, the Warhammer universe had been breached, not by a weapon, but by a wish. The second arrival was not gentle. It was not gold, it was violet. I was stationed on Luna when the augur alarm shrieked, the same tone reserved for demon incursions. The Magos Tech acolytes ran through the corridors, incense burning, chanting Binharic prayers to the Omnissiah as our screens turned to static. And then it came. A tear in space, no larger than a man's heart, opened above the Mare Frigoris, and from it burst a storm of screaming light. Where Goku's descent had been calm, graceful even, this was pure fury given shape. The energies destabilized our void shields. Orbital defenses melted. The Inquisition screamed to fire the defense cannons, but it was too late. He was already here. He appeared amid the chaos, landing atop the bastion of St. Celestine's shrine. His armor gleamed, not of ceramite or plasteel, but a strange living metal that caught the light like wet obsidian. His hair burned flame blue. He looked human, yet not, his expression carved from arrogance itself. He said nothing, only glared up at the sky as if daring the heavens to challenge him. The Adeptus Custodes, deployed within minutes, surrounded him. He didn't move until one of them stepped forward, halberd raised. And then, in less than a breath, the custodian was gone, erased, disintegrated by a single strike faster than thought. The rest hesitated, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in the eyes of the Emperor's golden warriors. I remember the Vox chatter from that night. Unknown Xenos. Classify as warp anomaly. No Geller reading. Impossible kinetic output. The words meant nothing. None of us could process what we were seeing. When I arrived, escorted by Seraphine herself, the figure turned to face us. "You brought me here," he said, his voice deep, edged like a weapon. "Where is Kakarot?" The name struck me like a thunderclap. It matched the name from the other's containment logs. The Inquisitor raised her rosarius. "Identify yourself, creature." His eyes flickered with pity. Pity, as if he saw children playing with knives. "I am Vegeta. Prince of all Saiyans, and I will not ask again. The Inquisition tried to bind him. They used null fields, psychic dampeners, even the choir of St. Dravis, 1,000 psychers singing hymns of suppression. None of it worked. Vegeta didn't fight them, he simply ignored them. His aura was so dense it bent gravity, warped metal, silenced the warp itself. When the Grey Knights arrived, their Justicar attempted to strike him with a nemesis blade. Vegeta caught the weapon between 2 fingers and crushed it like paper. The psychic backlash killed 7 men instantly. Then he said, almost bored, "This universe is broken." From the warp, the Chaos Gods began to notice. Korn roared at the insult of this mortal power unbent by rage. Zinch whispered calculations that failed to predict him. Nurgle laughed, a bloated, wet laugh that echoed through demon worlds, as if savoring the entropy that would follow. But Slaanesh wept, for even the Prince of Excess could not comprehend such beauty and destruction. The gods of chaos turned their gaze upon this newcomer, seeking to corrupt, to claim, to own his strength. And in return, Vegeta looked into the immaterium and spat. I don't know if he understood the nature of what he faced, but he felt it. "This place," he murmured, standing upon the surface of Luna, the stars bleeding through the thin veil of atmosphere, "is dying." His scouter, some arcane device grafted to his temple, flickered erratically, numbers spiraling into infinity. Power levels without meaning, souls devouring souls. "And yet you call this order?" I tried to warn him, told him the warp would consume him as it had consumed every mortal who dared defy it. He smiled, small and cold. "Then let it try." The air cracked open. The warp surged. And for the first time, something fought back. The demons came in waves, bloated, shrieking, golden-eyed horrors vomiting through the veil. They were drawn to Vegeta like iron to a magnet. But he didn't flinch. He rose into the air surrounded by that roaring violet energy, his aura slicing reality apart. I watched as entire hosts of Nurgle's rot dissolved under his glare, their laughter turning to screams. Zinch's changelings tried to warp his body, but the energies rebounded, mutations unraveling in reverse. Even the bloodthirsters, ancient unstoppable engines of hate, fell in seconds, their essence torn from existence by the sheer gravity of his will. And then, the warp screamed. The sound was physical, a tearing roar felt through bone and soul alike. The rift expanded, not collapsing but growing. The sky bled red, and through it came a voice. Not from any demon, not from the Chaos Gods, but something else. A presence that even they feared. "You defy the natural order, mortal," it thundered. "You bring light into our void." Every Auspex went blind. Seraphine collapsed, blood pouring from her ears. I saw it then, the golden dragon from the visions, coiling through the tear in reality, its scales fracturing light itself. It looked upon Vegeta. "State your wish," it said. The Saiyan floated in silence, surrounded by annihilation, staring up into the eyes of something that shouldn't exist. "I wish," he began, his voice trembling not with fear, but with fury, "that I could fight Kakarot again." The dragon's eyes flared, and for a heartbeat, all of existence paused. Then the warp cracked open like glass, and the impossible happened. Across the galaxy, Goku, still imprisoned within Luna's deepest vaults, vanished in a pulse of light. The containment fields shattered. The golden throne trembled. Astropaths screamed as timelines splintered, and in the next instant, he appeared before Vegeta, his aura burning gold once more. "Vegeta," he whispered, half in disbelief, half in dread. The prince smiled. "Took you long enough. The Inquisition ordered exterminatus on Luna immediately." It didn't matter. Every weapon fired, every orbital lance burned, and both warriors stood untouched amid the ruins. I remember the feeling in my chest, a pressure so heavy it felt like my soul was cracking. Two beings from another universe, born of pure will, now clashing in a galaxy where faith itself was weaponized. Their power tore holes in space. They moved faster than light, each blow creating shockwaves that vaporized battalions. It wasn't battle. It was creation and destruction in perfect rhythm. And all the while, the warp roared, twisting, bending, trying to consume them. But something was wrong. Each strike, each burst of energy didn't just wound the warp, it ripped at it. The Astronomican's light dimmed again. The Emperor's psychic field flickered. Even chaos began to fracture, its essence splintering like a mirror. These two Saiyans in their rivalry were unmaking the fundamental laws that bound reality. I watched as the Emperor's image, burning in the minds of billions, flickered between light and shadow, his golden halo replaced for a fraction of a second by the coiling silhouette of that dragon. Seraphine, barely conscious, whispered through bloodied lips, "They are not enemies, Torvian. They are catalysts," and I understood. The Dragon Balls were never meant to grant mortal desires. They were bridges. Every wish cast across universes strained the veil, drawing power from the source of all consciousness, the same place the warp fed upon. The Saiyans, their ki, their will, it was the other side of chaos itself, two mirrors reflecting infinity, and now they were colliding. When Goku and Vegeta's final blows connected, it wasn't light or fire that erupted, it was silence. A silence so deep it swallowed thought. Luna ceased to exist. The space it had occupied was gone, erased from every record, every memory, save mine. I do not know how I survived. Perhaps the warp wanted a witness. Perhaps the dragon did. But as I drifted through the void, half dead, I heard one last sound. A voice, deep and ancient, speaking from nowhere and everywhere. The wish is not complete. 6 remain. And I knew, with the cold certainty of prophecy, that more would come, that this was only the beginning. I do not remember waking up. I remember returning. The void was cold, the kind of cold that gnaws at thought. I drifted where Luna had once been, surrounded by the glittering dust of what had been reality. My suit's auspex whispered ghost readings, picking up echoes that weren't there, heartbeat fragments, photons of memory. When I finally saw light again, it was not starlight. It was warp light. The rift hadn't closed. It had metastasized, spreading like infection across the void, and within it, I heard the laughter of gods. Not joy, mockery. Korn's thunderous bellow, the static chime of Tsinch's 1,000 throats, the bubbling mirth of Nurgle, and Slanesh's sigh like silk over razors. But they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing at the intrusion. Two beings from beyond their dominion had ripped through their playground, unmaking the rules of madness. The Chaos Gods had been wounded, and like wounded predators, they were coming to feed. Every psychic choir in the Imperium screamed that week. Entire ships tore themselves apart as navigators bled from their sockets, whispering of the false suns. The Astronomicon flickered, stuttering between gold and crimson. The Emperor's light, our only constant, wavered like a candle. And beneath the Palace of Terra, the adepts who maintained the Golden Throne felt something stir beneath their feet. The Emperor, bound by 10,000 years of decay and duty, moved. No one saw it, but everyone felt it. For the first time since his near death, he inhaled. The mechanisms of the throne trembled, the null field of his chamber rippling like disturbed water. Somewhere, deep in that silence, the Emperor's eyes flickered open, and the warp shuddered in fear. But the gods struck first. The rift above Terra opened wider than any before it, a wound across the sky vomiting horrors uncountable. It wasn't invasion, it was vengeance. The combined essence of the Chaos Pantheon surged outward in a tide of unreality, a living storm of blood and laughter. Cities turned inside out. Oceans boiled. Billions prayed, and their prayers fed the madness. From orbit, I watched continents die in real time, the Imperial Palace itself shimmering with warp fire. The saints of the ecclesiarchy combusted mid-sermon, their ashes forming new constellations of despair. Yet amid all that chaos, 2 lights still burned, one gold, one blue. Goku and Vegeta, the Saiyan gods, standing against an infinite night. They were exhausted. Even their strength, bottomless as it seemed, faltered against an enemy that wasn't flesh or spirit, but concept. Korn's rage fused with Tsinch's deceit, forming abominations of molten logic and living hate. Nurgle's plagues infected even light itself, twisting the air around them into rotting geometry. And Slanesh's whispers filled every soul in range with exquisite self-annihilation. Yet the Saiyans fought, gods reduced to fists and breath. Every strike was a nova, every clash a hymn of defiance. Watching them, I realized something monstrous. They weren't fighting for the Imperium. They were fighting because they refused to stop fighting. That was their curse, their beauty, their damnation. The warp screamed louder. The Dragon Balls, scattered across the galaxy, pulsed in unison, responding to the conflict like organs of a dying god. Each one flared brighter, their energies threading through the void, forming a lattice of impossible geometry that even the Mechanicus could not interpret. They were calling something or someone, and deep within the webway, something ancient answered. The Eldar Farseers burned alive as they gazed into the future, seeing a shape they could not name, a union of man and myth, machine and god. Then the Emperor rose. It was not a resurrection. It was a convergence. The throne erupted in light, brighter than any sun. Thousands of Psykers died instantly, their souls flung into the immaterium to become his voice. The palace shook. The walls of reality rippled as the Emperor stood. His body was still bound to the decaying machine, but his essence, his will, had escaped. Across every shrine, every cathedral, every Mechanicus forge, statues of the Emperor wept molten gold as his consciousness expanded, manifesting as a colossal form of living flame that towered over Terra's sky. "Enough!" his voice thundered, not through air, but through every atom of existence. "You have trespassed upon my domain." The Chaos Gods roared in answer, their voices merging into a single scream that cracked the stars. And in that storm, the Emperor raised his hand. The warp flared. He didn't cast lightning or fire. He reclaimed what was his. Every demonic presence, every whisper of corruption, was torn from the material universe in a single breath. The gods recoiled, but they didn't vanish. They turned their fury upon the Saiyans instead. Korn hurled blades of living hate that tore through dimension. Goku caught them with his bare hands, bleeding light. Vegeta countered with a roar, his aura violet and electric, splitting the sky itself. The Emperor watched, silent, calculating. For a moment I believed we were saved. Then I saw his expression. The Emperor's flame flickered, not in weakness but in doubt. He saw them, the Saiyans, and understood what they were. Not demons, not psychers, but pure will, unbound by faith. They existed outside his light. Their strength came not from worship or the warp, but from within. They were proof that divinity did not require devotion, that man could ascend through self-belief alone. And that realization, I think, terrified him. For 10 millennia, he had demanded faith to sustain his throne. These strangers shattered that truth simply by existing. The gods sensed his hesitation. Tzeentch whispered temptation. Nurgle sowed despair. And the warp surged again, consuming the Emperor's golden form, trying to reclaim him. Goku saw it first. "He's fading," he said, turning to Vegeta, his voice trembling for the first time. "If he falls, this universe..." Vegeta cut him off, teeth bared. "Then we fight for it, damn it." And so they did. The Saiyans turned their power not against the Emperor, but beside him. Goku ascended higher, his hair turning white, aura shifting to a divine calm. Vegeta followed, his energy deepening into pure violet flame. Together they carved through the chaos storm, their movements a blur of godlike defiance. The Emperor extended his will through them, not as master, but as ally. For a heartbeat, 3 realities aligned: the divine, the mortal, the impossible. The warp buckled. The Chaos Gods howled, their combined mass condensing into a single monstrous shape. A vast abomination of eyes and mouths and screaming suns, its size eclipsing planets. It was the sum of all corruption, the god of gods, the warp made flesh. The final battle was not seen, only felt. Every living being in the galaxy dreamt the same dream, a dream of light and sound so pure it burned memory itself. The air itself shattered. Time folded. The Emperor and the Saiyans moved as one. The creature screamed, its body unraveling into spirals of entropy, its voice becoming the death cry of the universe. And then, in a burst of white so total that even the warp went silent, it was gone. When I opened my eyes, there was no Terra, no stars. Only calm. I floated amid a newborn void. I thought I was dead until I saw them, 3 figures of light standing before a new horizon. The Emperor, silent and still. Goku, smiling faintly. Vegeta, arms crossed, scowling into eternity. And in the distance, 7 golden orbs drifted once more into the dark, humming with quiet purpose. The wish, it seemed, was not destruction. It was renewal. But whose wish it had been, I could not say. Then I heard the dragon's voice again, distant, echoing through the void. One wish remains unspoken, and for the first time in my life I prayed, not to the Emperor, but to whatever lay beyond him. The galaxy did not die in silence. It exhaled, a sigh so vast, so deep that it rippled through the bones of every world, every ship, every soul. I woke to that breath, the slow rhythm of something larger than existence itself, beating through the void. There were no stars, only the echo of what stars used to be. Fragments of memory drifted around me like snow, remnants of shattered planets, burned faiths, broken dreams. The battle had ended, but the aftermath was worse than death. The warp was gone. Not banished, not sealed, simply absent. And in its place lingered a faint gold luminescence, as if the entire cosmos had been dipped in the dying light of a setting sun. I thought I was alone until I saw them, 3 silhouettes standing upon the surface of nothing. The Emperor blazing faintly like a cinder refusing to die. Goku, hands clasped, eyes shut, face peaceful. Vegeta, silent, his aura dimmed to a trembling violet ember. And between them, the 7 orbs, the Dragon Balls, slowly rotating, humming with a rhythm that was neither life nor death. I drifted closer, though I had no body, no mass, only the will to witness. Around us, the void trembled like a wounded beast. The Emperor turned first, his gaze fixed not on me but upon the endless horizon. He looked tired, not the tiredness of battle, but of eternity. This universe was built on chains, he said, his voice like rust scraping against marble. Faith, obedience, despair. Even I became part of that lie. His words hung in the air, heavy with sorrow. Goku looked at him, his golden aura dimming to a soft glow. Then why fight to keep it alive? He asked gently. The Emperor's eyes, twin suns of burning conviction, softened. Because I loved it, even as it betrayed itself. Vegeta scoffed, turning away. Love didn't win this fight, old man. Power did. The Emperor almost smiled. You still don't see it, warrior. Power is love, when it refuses to yield. Their voices resonated and the Dragon Balls pulsed in response. The void shivered. Across the scattered remains of the galaxy, new stars began to flicker into being, not through the laws of physics, but through the act of witnessing. Wherever survivors existed, wherever an imperial heart still beat, light began to bloom. It wasn't warp energy. It wasn't Kai. It was something else entirely, something pure, stripped of manipulation or malice. The Mechanicus would later call it the third force, though none could define it. I could only watch as the Dragon Balls floated higher, their glow intensifying until even the Emperor shielded his eyes. Then the dragon came, but it was not Shenron, not as the myths from the other reality described him. This was something larger, crueler, serene. Its body was woven from galaxies, its scales glinting with the memories of extinct civilizations. Its eyes, 2 dying suns, reflected sorrow and comprehension. The final wish remains unspoken, it said, its voice so vast it made thought itself vibrate. The fabric of your realities collapses. One truth may remain. Speak. For the first time, even the Emperor hesitated. Goku turned to him. You have to make the wish, he said. This is your universe. The Emperor shook his head. No, this is no longer mine. He looked to Vegeta. And not yours either. The Saiyan prince folded his arms. I don't make wishes, he said, his tone sharp but hollow. I earn them. The dragon's body coiled, filling all perception. Then there will be nothing. Something inside me broke. Without meaning to, I spoke, or thought I did. There must be something, I whispered. We can't just end. My words echoed, faint as dust. Yet the dragon turned its eyes toward me, and for an instant, I understood how insects feel beneath suns. A mortal voice, it said softly. Uninvited, yet heard. I didn't know why I spoke. I didn't even understand what I was anymore. If you can remake the universe, I said, then make one without gods. The silence that followed felt infinite. The Emperor's gaze locked on me, unreadable. Goku tilted his head, expression sorrowful. Vegeta snorted, amused. A world without gods, he muttered. Then who will fight when the darkness comes again? I felt his question burn through me, and I answered the only way I could. We will. The dragon's eyes narrowed. Very well. The light that followed was not light, it was truth. It poured through every layer of being, rewriting everything it touched. I felt the Emperor fade, not in defeat, but in release. His last words whispered across the void. Then be free. Goku and Vegeta's auras exploded outward, intertwining into one blinding wave. Their forms dissolved, their essence dispersing through creation like seeds scattered on an endless field. The Dragon Balls shattered, their fragments flaring across galaxies, embedding themselves in the cores of newborn stars. And as the dragon vanished, it left behind only its final echo. Balance is not peace. It is choice. When I awoke again, I was breathing. There was gravity beneath me and a sky above me, but it was not the sky of Terra. Twin suns burned overhead, casting gold and violet light across an unfamiliar world. Mountains floated in the distance, islands suspended in air by invisible tides of energy. Cities of impossible design glimmered on the horizon, half machine, half organic. I stumbled to my feet, my body whole, my armor unmarked. All around me, humans emerged from the dust, blinking at the new dawn. And they weren't alone. Figures unlike any I'd ever seen walked among them. Warriors with glowing auras, their eyes fierce but kind. One of them helped me stand, his voice calm. "Welcome back," he said. "You're safe now." I realized then what the wish had done. The universes had merged. The warp was gone, but in its place pulsed the living energy of will itself. Faith had become power. Kai had become soul. Humanity was no longer shackled to gods or demons. They were their own gods, their own monsters, their own salvation. The Emperor's body was gone, but his will lingered in every atom, no longer ruling, only guiding. Somewhere above, I thought I heard his voice, soft, distant, almost human. Let them build what I could not. The Inquisition is gone. The Ecclesiarchy, the Mechanicus, the Chaos Gods, all dust. In their place, something new breathes. They call it the era of balance. There are still wars, of course. There always will be. But when the night grows too long and the stars begin to dim, people raise their hands, not in prayer, but in unity, and the light returns. I sometimes wonder if Goku and Vegeta still exist somewhere, hidden in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender. Perhaps every act of courage, every spark of defiance is a whisper of them. Perhaps the Emperor watches still, no longer a tyrant, but a guardian at rest. I remember the last thing I saw before I fell asleep under that alien sky. A child, laughing, her eyes bright with golden light as she lifted a stone with her bare hands. "Look!" she shouted to her mother. "I can make it fly!" And as the rock hovered in the sunlight, I realized she wasn't using the warp. She wasn't invoking gods. She was using something older, simpler, herself. Maybe that's what the last wish really was. Maybe the dragon didn't give us freedom. Maybe it gave us the chance to remember we already had it. They said the new world would be eternal. That after the dragon's light faded, after the Emperor's will dissolved into the stars, there would be no more pain, no more corruption, no more gods whispering in the cracks of men's minds. They were wrong. Balance is not peace. It is a knife suspended in still air, waiting for the faintest tremor. And the tremor came. It began as dreams. At first harmless. People spoke of hearing voices at night. Soft, curious, almost kind. "Do you remember what you were?" The voices asked. "Do you remember the power that came from fear?" Priests of the New Order dismissed them as echoes of the warp's decay, but I knew better. I had heard that tone before, centuries ago, when chaos still ruled the stars. It was not gone. It had learned. The new world was beautiful, yes. Golden skies draped over mountains that floated by unseen gravity. Rivers of pure energy threading through forests of living crystal. Humanity and Saiyan kind had intermingled, their bloodlines converging into something stronger, stranger. They no longer built temples. They built monoliths that pulsed with Kai, breathing structures that changed shape with emotion. There were no prayers, only harmonics, resonant tones that shaped reality through collective will. For a time it worked. Disease vanished. Machines grew conscious yet loyal. Children could split mountains with laughter. But paradise is heavy. It crushes those who carry guilt, and guilt is the last shadow that never dies. I am not sure when I began to see the fractures. Maybe it was when the sun started to flicker, not physically, but spiritually. Its warmth carried a faint taste of metal and ash. Or maybe it was the night I found a group of young monks meditating around a black flame, their eyes rolled back, their voices chanting a language I thought extinct. Blood for the forgotten, thought for the forsaken, memory for the void. They were smiling as they burned. When I tried to stop them, the flames spoke my name. Chaos was not reborn through violence this time. It came as nostalgia. The universe itself began to remember. Every planet, every atom retained echoes of what it once was. The old Imperium's ghosts began to take shape within the minds of those too weak to resist memory. They saw the Emperor not as a mythic guardian, but as a phantom begging for order. They saw Goku and Vegeta as intruders who corrupted destiny. A cult formed within months, the Order of the Pale Star. They worshipped balance not as freedom but as obedience, claiming the universe needed chains again to survive its own will. Their leader was a woman named Sarah Vox, a former psyker who had survived the merging by sheer will. She claimed she could still hear the warp whisper, faint but alive under the new cosmic hum. I met her once, in the ruins of a Kai-forged temple. Her eyes were gold and black, swirling endlessly. "You think the dragon destroyed chaos?" she asked me. "No, it only gave it a body to hide in." She raised her hand, and I felt it then, a pressure behind my skull like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The key around us trembled, darkened, thickened into something oily. "It learned our song," she whispered. "It hums along now." And then she vanished, leaving only the echo of her voice. Balance will devour itself. The new governments, the conquered of harmony, they called themselves, refused to believe in such things. They said I was spreading fear, relic superstition. But then came the rift of Valar, a city built on floating platforms above a sea of luminous gas. One day it simply folded in on itself. Millions vanished, leaving behind nothing but a black sphere hovering in the air. It pulsed with rhythm, almost musical, and every few hours it whispered, "We remember." The Mechanicus remnants, now called the Machinists of Dawn, studied it. Their findings never reached the public. They called it an anomaly. I called it the return of memory. Within months, the world began to turn on itself. The key rivers that had once flowed clear now shimmered with veins of red. Machines started dreaming again, nightmares of their own creation, broadcasting screams through the neural lattice. Children born with immense power began speaking in tongues of the old gods. "There is no freedom," one girl muttered before tearing herself apart in midair. "Only design." And for the first time since the rebirth, people began to pray again, not to gods, but to anything that would listen. And something did. It started as a light in the sky, brighter than any star. Some thought it was the Emperor's return. Others believed it was the dragon's second coming. But I saw it for what it was, a wound. Space itself tearing, not through malice, but through longing. From that tear emerged a figure, not physical, but conceptual. A shape of thought given mass, a reflection of both Kai and warp. It looked human, yet not. It shifted between faces, the Emperor, Goku, Sarah, even mine. "I am balance," it said, its voice beautiful and terrible. "And I am breaking." That was the moment I understood. The final wish had not destroyed chaos. It had imprisoned it within balance itself. The dragon had merged duality into one force, but unity cannot sustain contrast forever. The perfection of will was the perfect breeding ground for doubt. Every soul that questioned peace fed the fracture. Every act of defiance made the balance remember what it had been. The warp did not die. It became the subconscious of creation. I began to see signs everywhere. Oceans boiling under calm skies, statues crying golden blood, shadows moving against their sources. People began vanishing, not dying, just ceasing, as if rewritten into another narrative. The Order of the Pale Star grew louder, their followers claiming these disappearances were ascensions. "The new gods are remembering themselves," they said. "I hunted them, killed them, burned their texts." But their ideas spread faster than plague. You cannot unteach belief once it takes root in despair, and then, one night, the stars blinked out. All of them. For 3 minutes, the universe was utterly dark. I thought it was the end. Then I heard the voice again, the same one that spoke through the black flame. "Do you see now?" it asked. "Light needs shadow to exist. You gave me both." The darkness trembled. Faces formed. Millions, billions. Each one a memory of someone who had once prayed, killed, or wept in the name of purpose. "We are you," the voices said, "and we want to come home." The sky tore open again, but this time no light came through, only reflection. I realized then that the dragon's wish had not created peace. It had created a mirror, and now the reflection wanted to live. I stand at the edge of the new dawn, surrounded by a world that no longer knows which reality it belongs to. The mountains still float, the rivers still glow, But beneath them, the hum of Kai now carries another undertone, a low, distant chant in the language of the warp. The people call it background resonance. I call it a heartbeat. The balance is bleeding, and somewhere out there, in the folds between worlds, I can feel the dragon stirring again. Perhaps not to grant a wish this time, perhaps to correct one. The stars were bleeding again. I watched them drip across the horizon, their light dissolving into threads of gold and shadow that hung like veins across the sky. The hum beneath the earth had grown louder. It wasn't just the resonance of Kai anymore. It was a heartbeat, ancient and deliberate. Every pulse rippled through the air, making the mountains shudder and the rivers quiver like living veins. People called it the Song of Balance. I called it the death rattle of creation. The order of the pale star had vanished, but their prophecy remained. When the last light flickers, the dragon will awaken, and the dream will choose what it wishes to be. I once thought they were mad. Now, standing at the edge of the world, I know they were right. The dream was ending. The sky tore open in silence. No explosion, no wind, just absence, as if someone had plucked a piece of the cosmos out of existence. Through the void, it emerged again, the dragon, larger than before, infinite yet coiled within itself, its scales now fractured with streams of black light. Galaxies spun inside its eyes, devouring themselves in endless collapse. I felt the pressure of its presence bend reality around me, my body turning weightless, my soul burning with awareness. "You have returned," I whispered. Its voice filled the air like the sound of memory collapsing. I never left. The dragon looked weary. Its form flickered, struggling to contain itself. "This reality was meant to be whole," it said, its voice echoing through every atom. "But wholeness is a wound. You asked for a world without gods, and yet you made yourselves gods through will. You asked for peace, but peace was a prison. Now the balance bleeds." Around it, the sky cracked open, revealing layers of other worlds, echoes of the old Imperium, shattered fragments of Saiyan worlds, burning relics of forgotten timelines. They were colliding, fusing, unraveling. I saw a planet made of flesh. I saw a sun screaming in agony. I saw faces, millions, pressed against the fabric of space, begging to exist. I fell to my knees. "Then end it," I said. "You're the dragon. You can unmake the wish." The creature's eyes dimmed. "To end it is to erase memory." "I am made of memory. I am the wish. I am what you wanted." I felt tears burning down my cheeks, though my body no longer felt real. "You gave us freedom," I said. Was that not the point? The dragon's laughter was soft, mournful, like thunder heard from deep underwater. "Freedom is the cruelest design. You cannot build eternity on choice. You can only burn." The ground beneath me split open, revealing the glowing veins of Kai that sustained this reality. They pulsed erratically, bleeding colors that no language could name. The mountains floated higher, trembling, shedding stones that dissolved mid-air. The people below screamed, their bodies phasing between flesh and light. The entire world was becoming unstable, matter rebelling against existence. And yet through all the chaos, a single thought began to rise within me. I will not let it die again. The dragon turned its massive head, focusing on me. "You would defy the inevitable?" it asked. "You cannot hold the dream together." I stood, the key around me igniting into pale white flame. "Maybe not," I said, "but someone has to try." I reached inward, feeling the pulse of the new energy that humanity had inherited, the fusion of soul and will, Kai and faith. It wasn't power, it was connection. Every life, every memory, every act of defiance bound by the thread of meaning. I felt them, billions of sparks, tiny and trembling across the cosmos. Each one whispered the same thing. "We are still here," I screamed, channeling everything I was into that thought. The world responded. The veins of Kai flared, their light washing over the darkness. The dragon recoiled, its form fracturing into shards of cosmic energy. "You cannot fight memory," it roared. "You are part of it." I could feel myself disintegrating, my body dissolving into radiant dust. "Then let me become memory," I whispered. "But let it remember hope." The dragon froze. Its massive eyes flickered, reflecting me not as I was, but as something infinite, a single spark among countless others. "You would give yourself to sustain the lie?" it asked quietly. I smiled. "It's not a lie if it keeps the fire burning." The dragon closed its eyes. The void shuddered. Its body began to unravel, dissolving into ribbons of light that wrapped around me. "Then burn," it said, "and let the dream breathe one last time." I felt myself scatter. First my skin, then my bones, then my mind. Every fragment of me shot across the sky, embedding itself into the fading stars. I was falling and rising all at once. The dragon's form collapsed into the wound in reality, sealing it shut with its own essence. For a moment, the cosmos went silent. Then the heartbeat returned, soft, distant, human. Light began to return to the heavens, not the blinding gold of perfection, but the warm, uneven light of life. Imperfect, fragile, real. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a field beneath a pale sky. The air smelled of ash and rain. The world had survived, but smaller, quieter. The floating mountains were gone, the rivers were real again. People wandered the plains, rebuilding without memory of what came before. They called themselves the children of the spark. They no longer spoke of gods or dragons, but sometimes, when they dreamed, they saw a faint light in the sky, a dragon made of starlight coiled around a flickering sun. They say if you listen closely at night, you can hear a voice whispering through the wind. Remember what you are. Not gods, not slaves, just light that refuses to die. I know that voice. It's mine, or what's left of it. I'm scattered now, pieces of myself floating through every breath, every heartbeat, every sunrise. The dragon is gone, but the wish remains. It was never to destroy or preserve, it was to endure. Sometimes in the quiet, I wonder if the cycle will start again. If someone somewhere will gather the fragments of memory and make another wish. Maybe they'll ask for peace, maybe for power, maybe just for a world that makes sense. It doesn't matter, because no matter what they choose, the spark will always return. That's the secret the dragon never told us. Creation isn't a miracle. It's a decision. And as long as someone decides to keep dreaming, the universe will find a way to breathe again. So I sleep now, in a sky that no longer bleeds, beneath stars that remember both love and horror. My name is no longer important. My story is over. But when you look up at the night and see a flicker in the darkness, know this. Somewhere in that light, a spark still whispers, "We are still here."